thought a show about the Penguin would not only be good, but basically be perfect. Not to sound like Homelander, but everything, every frame, every music choice, every set, every casting, every episode is basically perfect. It's so good that it's not homework for the next Batman film, but stands on its own as a beautiful character study about a really disturbing individual. I found myself rewriting this video like 3 times because the show kept getting deeper into Oz's character and revealing more that I didn't expect. But what was the actual plot about? After Gotham was flooded, there's a hole left in the crime world from the death of Carmine Falcone. In episode 1, Oz impulsively kills his heir for laughing at him. As a result, he begins to play both sides with the rival crime family, the Maronis, and mentors a kid called Vic. In episode 2, Oz begins to bond with Sofia, Carmine's daughter, who's treated like an outsider for spending a decade in Arkham. She thus ends up in a partnership with Oz for a hostile takeover. They are 2 outsiders with ambitions greater than what the system gives. Therefore, in episode 3, they start selling Bliss, a mushroom used on the patients in Arkham as a party drug, since everyone is suffering from losing their homes. But in episode 4, Sofia learns the truth of Oz's actions, and with this last connection of trust severed, she commits to a hostile takeover on her own. I'm going to hold off explaining the last half of the show until later in the video, because I want to set the stage for the broader analysis. But notice how I didn't use "and" to connect the events in each episode. It's always "as a result" and "buts." That's because the show flows so absurdly well. It's not quite an 8-hour-long film because every episode are so distinct, but it's 8 individual films that leads you into the next. So you really get to live with these characters at different stages of their plans and relationships. It's all killer and no filler. The Penguin is a show about a villain, not an anti-hero, not a misunderstood victim, but a villain. And the joy is seeing a psychopath build an empire through managing his impression.
I make myself small, they feel better about themselves, and I get to go back to work.
This is where the analysis comes in.
Something changing your mind.
Irving Goffman, I actually started working on this before the Green Lantern video by the way, once argued human identities exist as a result of how we try to foster an impression in our day-to-day interactions, to the extent that social interactions are metaphorically similar to theatrical performances. If you think about it, all our social actions are designed to be seen, and we hide what's not meant to. As a result, within this model, success in terms of the actor/individual's desire is based on if the audience views them as they want to be viewed, and embarrassment is successfully avoided. We all put on a front so we can be accepted. Everything else is hidden elsewhere in order for us to maintain a consistent impression. As Goffman himself neatly summarized, if an individual is to give an expression to ideal standards during this performance, then he will have to forget or conceal, which is inconsistent with these standards. When this inappropriate conduct is itself satisfying in some way, as is often the case, then one commonly finds it indulged in secretly. In this way, the performer is able to forego his cake and eat it too. In summary, we are who we are is arguably a dramatic effect determined by time, place, and more importantly, audience. This form of analysis can be broken down into 6 elements: persona, performance, stage, the role, the teams, and personal style. I'm going to use them to deconstruct Oz, Sofia, and Vic using 2 elements each. Why? It's because I found myself riding in circles when doing everything all at once, and this is a way to loosely frame everything. The persona is the variations on the self that we select for which situation fits the role. Vic Aguilar was just a little rascal caught by Oz. The only reason why he's alive is because he's able to put on the appearance of not just being a flood orphan with the small prospects of stealing and selling wheels, he's actually ambitious. He does want more and thus is useful to Oz. This persona of a career gangster is chosen as a means of survival originally, as a right-hand man/driver to Oz. His clothes, his home, and future has been set by this persona. He poetically becomes Oz from the start of his own career, with his prior identity erased. However, for Vic, that doesn't mean much. His entire family is dead, his school is underwater, and those who remain are in FEMA camps. But this persona actually changes him in return. He begins to do and believe things he couldn't before. He can bribe the police, bury dead bodies, he overcomes his traumatic episodes, kills for Oz even. The persona begins to wear him back, and this brings forth another dimension: the way his mask is worn. The performance can be sincere or cynical. This is directly confronted when Vic has the opportunity to leave. This whole time, we, the audience, and Vic believe that he's basically held hostage by a lonely narcissist, but he's actually allowed to go. Vic is effectively us in the show. We come into the show with a set of assumptions about the Penguin, but also through this kid, we're enticed by Oz's class revolution message. I think the line that really hit me was,
The world ain't set up for the honest man to succeed.
We grow to like Oz. We can see him clearly holding himself back from being too cruel to Vic. We want to see the rich be overthrown, and we see this criminal hustling actually gets results. So Vic returns. From the flood, he saw an accelerated version of the complete life and death of a conventional, honest working man. His father was a mechanic, but wanted to be a chef. He looked after a wife and 2 children in a small apartment and never complained.
You remember where we came from? We have more than enough.
But his humility was a barrier, while the rich and the corrupt got more influence and more favors. Therefore, as much as Vic's old man would be ashamed of him, his honest way is like the most unconvincing thing ever, dude. Vic doesn't leave with his girlfriends, because what would he do? Be poor and forgotten in the valley too? Have even less opportunities than the wildlife of Gotham? Beneath the fear is an honest ambition to rise, carved from his disenchantment with the system. The only clue on how to conduct himself is Oz's directions, because it's the only one getting him anywhere.
Oz, got the power back on.
His mask transitions from being worn cynically to sincere, which makes him so dependable that Oz elevates him from driver to family.
I want loyalty. I bring in guys who are looking for a father. Guys like that got a void to fill. They'll do anything for me.
However, this raises a new question about how much credit should we give to the environments in shaping the management of impressions? The stage is the context of the communication, and so the way our self-presentations is set, from physical locations to objects to what we wear. Although it's important to state that the stage is something that needs to be fed, because it's the projection of our facades that makes the props real, the set real, so the audience believe what is happening is coherent. Sophia has 2 stages because of her 2 environmental stages. That was so hard to differentiate during the voiceover process. The majority of Sophia's life was lived lavishly. She was a princess. Her dining hall is bigger than any home us peasants could ever hope to have. She has a personal driver. It's a stage which makes her aware that she is always protected, and it makes other people believe that they are too in their high society. Therefore, taking her out of it and putting her in Arkham had especially devastating consequences for them both. Furthermore, Arkham State Asylum was a hostile environment that gaslit her, fostered violence with corrupt correctional staff. Such painful past left her with paranoia, various traumatic outbursts, and disorientation over what sort of environmental routine actually matters. If she's had to eat like her food could be taken away, then caring about not putting her elbows on the table is ridiculous. This is why partially the family wants to get rid of her. She's always reminding them that they're not so safe after all, or so sophisticated. The stage and the set are not believed because of her stigma. In the theatre, as in interaction, the props, the set, the way of playing, the distribution of the actors in the space, the nature and the attitude of the public must be coherent with the role. The stake is to make the public adhere to his image and to persuade that the actor is the man of the situation. The facade makes it possible to quickly identify the statutory differences and to associate the corresponding behaviors with them. This idea of being the man of the situation is central to the survival of Oz and Vic, but it's precisely what is lacking with Sophia. Nobody wants her. This then leads me to teams, the company that we keep, the friendships and fellow actors that reinforce how our identities are performed. Sophia has always wanted to be a normal contributing member of the Falcones, not more or less just a member, as she declares during her dinner scene before she leaves them.
I loved you.
But they don't reciprocate. To them, she's just the hangman, the woman who killed 7 ladies. This is deeply hurtful in a way that is actively draining her self-esteem.
All I see is a spoiled bride who got what she deserved.
But this treatment has been defiantly feeding her ambition. Her father once promised her more, since she's a more suitable heir than Alberto. How sincere was he? Who knows? I mean, just her asking him once for an explanation about her mother's death and the other women was enough for him to frame Sophia. As a result, her hostile takeover is a declarative rejection of this team and any involvement with it in terms of how she manages herself. She gasses everyone and renames the family. Coping with stigma often involves trade-offs. Strategies used in the service of achieving one goal may inhibit the attainment of other goals.
You cared so much about your family.
That's because you Falcones eat your own.
There isn't much to say about the Maroni and the Falcone team-up because it's so self-explanatory, but the irony is that Sophia's actions has led her to being an abusive manipulator too, because she has to gaslight her little spared cousin to shut up.
But I'm still playing my father's game.
Sophia's impression management is effectively all about being a product which can be sold through interactions. She's required to filter out her appearance so she can fit the package of what people expect of her and maintain the reality that other people believe in. The idea that there's some sort of sophistication that exists containing their barbaric criminal business.
Jesus Christ, Milos has a higher body count than I do.
Sofia!
It's a fun inversion of Vic, where he's here to reassure Oz that his barbaric reality of lying, killing, and selfishness for more comforts is in its own twisted way honest. That there's something righteous about refusing to play within the system and expecting a reward.
They don't give out awards for dying in the projects.
Both directions triangulate to one path though, which is that you have to burn everything to the grounds in order to climb higher. And this is where Oz comes in. In episode 5, Oz begins to start a new operation to sell Bliss himself. In the process, he almost wipes out the Maronis. Therefore, Sofia and them join forces. As a result, in episode 6, Oz moves underground, creating a cult of personality as he paints his own criminal empire as a class revolution against the old system of corruption. As a last-ditch effort in episode 7, Sofia and Sal Maroni strikes back and takes Oz's mother and blows up Oz's lab. It all culminates in episode 8, where Oz outwits everyone by speaking to a senator guy to paint a story about Maroni killing Alberto, and Sofia went nuts and started a gang war. So taking her down will be good for his election. Oz wins. With the 2 major crime families dead and all the small gangs united under him, the magic formula to the way Oz survived everything was to keep finding new ways to give himself a role in someone else's business. Roles, which is the essence of Goffman's model, are the parts we play, the organizational principles of self-presentation, and we move from roles to roles across the day. The show, in fact, reintroduces us to the character through establishing this very skill. He goes from being busted from scavenging Carmine's stuff after his death to pretending like he's looking out for Alberto. Oz has a superpower of always positioning other people to seem more like the powerful one in order to justify his survival beneath them, which in turn creates the opportunity for him to pretend like he belongs with them. My favorite example is when he unites all the smaller gangs under a class revolution.
No, it's named for the rich crooks who took credit for your family's hard work.
I love the way when Oz is confronted over his reputation for betraying people, he reframes it as being part of his need to hustle in a town devoid of opportunities, something everyone understands, and this creates an image of honor that they drink to. He does the same with the senator later on, forming an alliance. However, Oz can change and create new roles because he doesn't believe in anything. There's 2 moments in the last episode which really solidifies this. It's when Vic pumps Oz up.
You gave people dignity.
Oz's reaction is like, alright, I guess that's a good enough reason. Then similarly, when he beats Sofia, he has a similar reaction to her similar comment.
Man of the people.
That's right.
That's what you need to believe, huh?
It's all fake. He just has a narcissistic drive to get what he wants, because if other people believe it, then he can use it for his own self-interest. What he has is a style. Personal style is the way we as individuals adapt to our roles, the creativity that we can't help but to imprint. Oz's personal style originates from 2 sources. The first is the idea of being like his childhood role model, a small-time gangster called Rex.
Rex Calabrese. Short on rent. Front you the cash. Know everyone's names too.
He was so beloved by the community that they threw a parade in his honor when he died. The other is being his mother's tough boy, who can overcome his anxieties through brute forcing his will on the situation so he can give her what she deserves after losing 2 boys.
You shot that guilty pisshead because you wanted to.
The show does an excellent job at the beginning misleading you with these 2 explanations for his motives. You're lured into this idea that perhaps there's something altruistic about him. He just wants to be a positive folk hero like Rex and look after his mother, who came from nothing. Through Vic, you believe this. Through Sofia, we feel excited about sticking it to the system. However, the horror is that neither of these motives are attached to anything with integrity inside Oz. They are just creative projects that he uses. He killed his brothers so he can have all the attention of his mother, and when he discovers she knew the whole time and hates him for it, which infers that a part of the whole be a strong boy is her means of trying to get him killed, he just doesn't listen. He also kills Vic at the end because he doesn't want to have any weakness, even though the kid is as loyal as it gets. Oz is a natural master of studying people, knowing them better than they know themselves, so he knows exactly how to use the folk hero story to manufacture his speech and create a personal style that in itself becomes a roadmap for greater success plans. All Oz cares about is himself. He's incapable of feeling beyond that. If we put all of this together in context to create a greater picture, we're shown that the believability of the stage is what reigns supreme. It dictates the actions of everyone, like scripts. At first, to follow such scripts is to keep a reality of sophistication, a veneer that their criminal society is safe, legitimate, and deserving. Then later on, it's about believing that the ceiling everyone is born under can be climbed if you tear it down. Honest guys like Vic are born to an even lower ceiling, and Sofia is born above it. The Penguin plays into this fantasy that you can perhaps break this ceiling if you roll up your sleeves, hustle, and turn off your compassion, because success is something that's exclusively rewarded to people like Oz, because he doesn't have any integrity or values. However, up in the sky, he will eventually get his ass beat, because the coolest thing about this show and its relationship with the Batman franchise is that when it reattaches itself at the end back to the broader mythology, there's an explosive release of emotions. We know that there's another script at play, that there are heroes and villains.
You know, the world isn't run by the laws written on paper. It's run by people. Some according to laws, others not. It depends on each individual how his world will be, how he makes it. And you also need a whole lot of luck, so that somebody else doesn't make your life hell. And it ain't as simple as they tell you in grade school. But it is good to have strong values and to maintain them, in marriage, in crime, in war. Always and everywhere. I messed up. So did Paulie and Sam. We wanted a better life, but in the end, we were a lot worse off than most other people. You know, I think it's important to keep a balance in things. Yeah, balance, that's the right word. Because the guy who wants too much risks losing absolutely everything. Of course, the guy who wants too little from life might not get anything at all.